tell you folks, Brother Nateure, Nathaniel Lee is, and will like the great Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Quote, I have no desire to take all black people back to Africa. There are blacks who are no good here and will likewise be no good there. Unquote. That's some powerful stuff. Having said that, I got to tell you folks, Brother Nateure, Nathaniel Lee is one of my favorite, if not the most favorite guests, because he is so selfless. The way you love your kitten, the way you love your puppy, we love pigs and horses and cows. Because if you take this pencil and stab your puppy in the eye with it, if you take this pencil and stab your kitten in the eye with it, that loving animal is going to feel excruciating pain. The same thing happens to a pig, a horse, a chicken, a snake. So why would you do it to one and not the other? The great Paul McCartney of the Beatles said that if slaughterhouses had glass walls, everybody would be vegan. And that is so true. Having said that, I'm going to turn it over for the next 10 to 12 minutes to my friend who is the defender of animals everywhere. And when he says, I love animals, he doesn't mean because he's a dog owner. He literally means he loves animals. So without further ado, for the next 10 minutes, my good friend, great friend, Brother Nathaniel Lee. What do you have for us today, sir?
Brother Mike, first of all, thank you so much. Greetings to you and our WURD family, those who are joining us via streaming, or you're watching us on our Facebook or webpage, or those who are listening 96.1 FM or 900 AM. I greet you all. Today I want to talk about something that I want to challenge our perceptions, and I want to challenge the difference between our principles, our professed principles and beliefs, and our actual practices. I want to talk about cognitive dissonance, where we believe one thing and we practice another. And I want to start by asking a question out there to our audience, wherever you may find yourself. And so if you're sitting out there and you're wondering, is he talking to me? Yes, I'm talking to you. I want you to, within yourself, just answer this question. And this question is, do you support the murder of animals? Do you concur with any practices that slaughter, mistreat, improperly contain, limit the liberation of living creatures other than humans, including humans? Do you support it? Do you believe that it is just? Do you believe in the abuse and the torture of animals of any kind? And so I want you to really, really within yourself, wherever you are right now, just answer that question to yourself. You don't even have to give the answer out loud. We're not going to make you put yourself on Front Street. Do you support the murder, the slaughter, the torture, the mistreatment of animals? And I bet you that almost everyone who answered that question would say no. Everyone would say no. I think all animals, God created all animals, or whether if you don't believe in God, you think that because they have life, that they should be treated humanely, that abuse is terrible. You know, people who abuse animals and do horrible things, they're terrible people. But many of you who said no, really, by the way your behaviors are and your actions, it's really yes. So if you said no to that question, do you support the murder, the abuse? Do you support the mistreatment and the torture of animals? And you said no, and you're a carnivore, then really your answer is yes. So I want you to go back and use your eraser, change your answer. Change the answer on the paper. And why do I say that? Why do I say that? Because in the process of consuming what we consume, it has to, by necessity, involve the murder, torture, abuse, mishandling, mistreatment of animals. Especially when there's alternatives so that you can get everything. See, there was a time, and there are some people in some circumstances, possibly, and I don't know of any, but let's say there is, where it's possible that that's your only choice. It's what you need to do to survive. Now, I don't know too many people in that situation, but if you are, I give you a pass, because, you know, it's life or death. I give you a pass. Me, I'd rather die. But there are those who may have had that choice, and so they're going to eat what's there. Most of us, especially here in the United States, it's a matter of choice. We can go and pick up anything we want. We can get our nutrients anywhere we want. We don't have to go out and hunt. And we're going to talk about hunters and fishers.
Yes, yes.
We're going to talk about the psychopathic personality of people who hunt and murder for pleasure. I don't care what your excuses is. If you are a hunter or a fisher and you answered no to the question, do you support? Do you condone? Would you support or condone the murder, mistreatment, torture of animals? And you said no, and you're a fisher and a hunter, and you have access to plenty of other resources for food to get your nutrients, but yet that's your sport, especially when you do it. For sport.
And Nate, you probably going to talk about this later, but I want to stop you right there because you just added something. You said you kill these animals, but you can get your nutrients elsewhere. After you lay out what you're going to lay out, I'm going to say to you, so Nate, what you say sounds good, but what if I said to you, but I don't want to eat grass? What's your answer to that? But finish your point.
Yeah, well, the point I made was actually done. It was with your personality, the personality of something that could kill for pleasure. That could kill for fun is psychopathic.
Nate, I'm so glad you're talking about that because on the one level, you and I got problems with just carnivores. I mean, you go to a restaurant, you eat meat, that's bad enough. But to go into the woods and simply kill Bambi because you can, what's wrong with you?
It's a sickness, and we pretty much in this culture, in this society, people pretty much characterize one of the characteristics of serial murderers, serial killers, are they're abusive animals. But you're a hunter, or you're a fisher, and you do it for fun, and you have the nerve to come back when you ask them why. Well, it's relaxing. Well, it's not relaxing to them. You find relaxation in the torture and the murder of an innocent animal that screams when you kill it, that runs to escape, begging for its life, trying to escape.
What about the bear traps? Think about that. You got this gigantic claw that holds an animal for hours and days in excruciating pain. Please continue, Nate.
If your spirit, if your mind, if you are inhumane enough to not feel the torture of, I was hiking one day. This was probably a year or two ago, and they had signs on the trees saying, and the sign said, "Beware bear traps." And they had the bear traps, and I'm looking at the sign and I'm looking at the trap. You know, of course, the bears can't read the trap, but it's warning the humans, like, beware, don't let your dog go over there, you don't go over. And I wanted to take those traps, and I couldn't, but to me, the torture, the murder, what we do gratuitously has a lot to do with who we are internally. We are, many of us, sick creatures, and we need to be whole. And so anyone who can condone that, if you look at serial killers, Jeffrey Dahmer and all of the rest, and all of those, and you say they're terrible, they're horrible, are you to a lesser degree just as terrible and horrible, just in a different way?
And Nate, let me just interject, because you may raise a good point. Of course, I'm not going to mention any name, but about 10 years ago, maybe 12, one of my most sociopathic clients, a murderer, when we were trying to figure out a potential guilty plea, we did a mental health examination. And this guy had this BB gun at 7 or 8 years old, and would go throughout the neighborhood just shooting and killing stray dogs and cats and kittens. That's what he did. And Nate, then he graduated to killing human beings. But please continue.
That's the trend. That's the trend. Many of those who can do such things to one species of animal usually end up doing it to others. That's why if you have a relationship, I was researching for our previous segment, and they said pretty much if you have a vegan or a vegetarian as a spouse, or if you're considering someone who, you're pretty much making a good choice. You find someone that they have compassion, they have empathy, they have that thing where they're socially conscious, because that transfers from the animals to humanity. But the same way in the reverse, there's this cognitive dissonance where we will answer the question of abuse, mistreatment. We will answer that question in the negative, but practice in a positive, but we are still murdering and supporting and condoning and etc. And I'm gonna go to the eating grass part. There is more variety of plants and vegetables than there are of meat. You have far more flavors, far more selection.
And they tell folks how you make cheeseburgers and hot dogs and hoagies, because you have pictures of them on your social media page.
Absolutely, and I wish I haven't done so much as I used to now in the last couple of weeks. But yes, I like hoagies. I like cheesesteaks. I like a good grilled cheese every now and then. You know what I don't like? I don't like murder. You know what I don't like? I don't like torture. You know what I don't like? I don't like animal mills where they contain these animals in horrific conditions and then use them so that I can have a 30-minute meal. You gave up your life so I could sit and watch TV with a sandwich. I can't do that. I can't. So I make my cheesesteaks out of mushrooms. I make my tuna fish, quote unquote tuna fish, out of garbanzo beans. And I challenge you to compare your tuna fish, which came out of the carcass of a slaughtered animal, to my garbanzo beans.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Nate, because you could actually fool people if you didn't tell them that it was a tofu hot dog or a burger, and you put this soy cheese on it, and you put ketchup and mustard and pickles on it. Nate, they would never know.
They would never know. It happened to me. Before I was vegetarian or vegan, I went to a restaurant with a young lady. She took me out to a restaurant, which was after work, and she said, look, I'm going to take you someplace. And I'm eating this delicious steak. And I'm like, I'm tearing it up. And she didn't tell me. It was so juicy and tender and so delicious. The spices was just right. She didn't tell me. And I said, this steak is really good. She said, this is not steak. And I said, really? I did not believe her to such a degree that I went back and asked the waitress. Oh. The whole restaurant was vegan. I had no idea. And so there have been studies where people have compared hamburgers to, and they put them on taste tests. I'm not making this up. You can Google it and research it. There have been tests, and people chose, without knowing which one was the best burger, they chose the vegan burgers.
Nate, very quickly, you have the final 3 minutes. I bought some tofu ice cream from Whole Foods.
When you realize bloating and discomfort don't have to be routine, everything changes. Try Rise Mushroom Coffee with 6 functional mushrooms that heal your gut, improve digestion, and boost immunity. A better routine starts here.
And I ate it last night. You know, Nate, it tastes so much like ice cream. I got out of my bed and went back to my freezer to make sure that what I bought was actually vegan ice cream. It was that sweet and that creamy that if you get the right brand, as you're talking about, folks won't even know. We'll give you the final 2-3 minutes, Nate.
Absolutely. And here is my final point. My final point is, people, look, I hope y'all don't see this as me just making a blanket judgment. I do have a judgment on behalf of life. I do have a judgment on behalf of the animals, the insects. I don't even kill insects unless I absolutely have to. If it's living, I do not try to kill it, and I try to preserve its life. But my main point is there's this cognitive dissonance, this thing that we believe and this thing that we practice. And when you don't do what you believe, when you don't practice what you believe, you come up with excuses as to why. So if you're not going to change what you do, you got to come up with a reason for why you do it. Or we need protein, we need this. And those a lot of times, once you do the science, the research, the reasons that you give aren't excuses. They don't excuse you because there's alternatives. So really, you're really doing it so that because you refuse to change the behavior, so you have to come up with a reason why you practice the behavior. What I'm saying is there can be an alignment. You have to give up nothing. Once you learn how this thing is, once you learn to live in that world, you have to give up no flavor. You don't even have to give up soul food. You just have to give up death and slaughter. You could learn to live a new life. You could learn to eat new ways without giving up the things you love. So the cognitive dissonance, the difference between what you profess and what you practice can be bridged. Your practice and your beliefs can become one thing. And that's my final message, people. Choose life.
Very well said. I got to tell you, Nate, this is one of the greatest shows we've had, one of the greatest segments, because one, you always do the research, but we had that impassioned back and forth, and it was all genuine, and I hope folks are picking up on it and feeling it. Our final 10, 15 seconds, Nate, how can people contact you or follow you?
Please follow me on, I do have a YouTube page. It's Outdoors with Front Page Nate, Outdoors with Front Page Nate on YouTube. But also you can go on Facebook, which is probably the best way, Nathaniel Lee, my name. And I'm also on Instagram at Front Page Nate. That's at Front Page Nate on Instagram. Again, DM me. I would give out my public number, but the reason I don't is because people don't call it, you'd rather go on social media. So DM me, I answer them.
I got to tell you, Nate, I love having you on because you literally save lives. Literally save lives. Animals are saved because you come on the show, and I hope you appreciate how important that is. Brother Nature, thank you very much, a.k.a. Nathaniel Lee, a.k.a. Front Page Nate. He's on every Saturday at around 2 p.m. If you love your dog, if you love your cat, tune in to Brother Nature's segment. Folks, we've got to take a quick break. We'll be